tell me. I try my hardest not to react and actually work out of frustration, out of a kind of desperation. I'll draw out of desperation, I'll sit there, I'll get really upset, I'll get really depressed, but I try. You don't want to really, there's no point putting marks on
Right.
when at least you don't have a destination, let's put it that way. I mean, I get there, it may be fucked up, you may have ruined something. Okay, that's a chance you take every time you put a mark on, right? But at least you have to have something guiding you, right? So I just watch the paintings. They tell me where they're dead, they tell me where they're alive, and then I wait around until they tell me, till I figure that out. I don't know. It's my
What
way
about,
of...
like, when it's done, as in like,
When it's done, it's usually like I need a few weeks, and what I do is I check it. I check the painting every day, like when I come in, and if it's still alive to me in some way that I didn't know about until the painting was there, and maintains that for like 2-3 weeks, sometimes more. Then I figure, okay, it's really done. But sometimes I'll switch on you. I'll come in, I'll think, this is really done. I'll go, oh no, something's wrong. And then it'll be weeks sometimes before I figure it out. It's a very completely uncertain, uncalculable way of painting.
How do you start?
I walk and I draw, and I draw and I draw, and I make these wacky drawings that are, for me, representations of the experience of looking at the city. I put in that ridiculous phrase because they're not drawings of the city. They're drawings of moving in the city and the city in motion. So I've sort of developed a funny kind of shorthand for that. Just so I connect things. It's not dependent on physical structure. So then I have thousands of those drawings around, hundreds, scores, let's say. And they sit around, then I do drawings from those. And all together, I start to get an idea of a kind of a moment and a place that's saying something to me. Something usually kind of deeply philosophical with a lot of meaning, a lot of, like a story, but an abstract story.
Does that make it hard to leave the city then, or is that?
Well, you know, it's not hard to leave the city, but, and I love other cities. I did the same thing in Toronto, because I was commissioned to do this giant painting, which they call a mural, but I made it into a painting, at the TD Bank in Toronto. It's there now. So if you ever go to Toronto, go to it's in the Mies van der Rohe building. So that's super cool. And super funny considering my work in Mies van der Rohe, you know. Could we be more polar opposite? But I have to it took me 2 years of going there and walking around, even though I go there a lot, to find out what the story was. Because every city has a story. And I'm just happen to be particularly attached to New York. I was born here. My parents moved when I was like 7. And even at that age, I knew that they were doing the wrong thing, that I want to come back. I just loved the city, this city. Well, up until about 3 years ago.
I feel there's a big relax and freedom in your painting. It's very beautiful. It's beautiful it's like messy, but the beauty is inside. It's a very tolerance of everything. So relaxed.
Very tolerant.
I feel that.
I never heard anyone put it that way, but I love that.
But yeah, okay. So my question is, because you said you have some interact with the city. So before you're feeling, when you work inside, I know you love New York, but the feeling you work inside a street, and now, is there something changed, something more deep, or anything that in your mind is different from before?
Well, certain things stay the same. The weather is always the weather. You moving through the city, and always, even New York, even now with the Disneyfication, corporatization of every nook and cranny everywhere. I'm sorry, there's still like crap on the street. There's still weather going on. There's still layers of what endlessly thrills me is this idea, this possibility that on this flat, opaque, lumpy surface, you can depict different times, different experiences, and different layers of experience at once. It's a magic. And it's a magic I noticed when I was little, and it's still magic to me. So that, like, okay, you're standing, let's say you're looking out by the river, and you look down at the ground, and it's full of mess, and there's something rusty and a cigarette butt, and then you move your eyes and you see some space, and then you might see, the trail of an airplane, and then all of a sudden you see 8 million people in a megapolis, and then the clouds are even beyond that. So it's like all those layers of what we all unconsciously, consciously see. That is what I'm painting. That is the subject.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times when you see that, I love that you said tolerance, I'm going to steal it. But the way I just let the paint go on the canvas however it wants to, I'm very open and kind of infinite in the way I use oil paint. It's all oil paint, but I use it in any way, in every way, and there's no kind of regularity. I'm trying to trace a route for eyes to move and stop and rest and move, just like we do in the world. And I'll actually paint lines, and I call them travel lines. So you can wander around or connect to a thing that looks like it might be something, and then it starts to look like a line again. So you're constantly moving back and forth between, this is just stuff, this is just a mark, it's just a lump. No, it's telling you a story, it's magic. I mean, I remember I was 4 or 5 when we were here in New York. And my parents would park me at the old Modern, where Guernica, the painting Guernica, used to live in this one incredible room. Because there was always a guard there, and then they would walk through. And I would sit there like I was watching a movie. And I couldn't get over the magic of how it was just marks on a surface, and yet I was traveling into the story. And I just how is that? I'm still every day in awe of that. I'm like a child,
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it's magic.
I was thinking about how you left New York when you were about 4, right?
Yeah. Oh no, when I was
5?
around 7.
Around 7, but still, there must have been kind of a yearning and this
There
kind
was.
of, because your earliest memories are like so magical.
So much more important.
So then when you were gone, you must have just really wanted
Oh, then
badly to
I just-
reconnect with that.
I
and-
so idealized it. When I
Yeah.
came back in '76 for 1 semester. I was studying in Nova Scotia, and then I moved back in '78.
Where you study?
Yeah, I was, went to undergraduate school in Nova Scotia. There's a wonderful there's a really good art school there.
What's it called again?
Nova Scotia College of Art and
Okay.
Design. And I took a semester abroad. Basically, it was an excuse and a free way to go and stay in New York for 6 months. And I just felt right back in love. Oh, New York in the '70s was so fantastic.
70s.
I know it's considered the bad days.
It's the
Took over
best.
word. And I was on the Lower East Side. I'm sorry. It was wonderful. Nothing ever happened. I wandered day and night. Yeah, it was rough and messy, and the subways were covered in
Graffiti.
oh, they were fantastic. Some of them were brilliant. They played with like the doors opening, and when the train moved, different things would happen. These guys, they were brilliant, weren't they? And you never knew what you were going to get. But they were really artworks. They weren't just letter tagging. They were major. They were fabulous.
I'm wondering, I don't see any figures in your work, and I'm wondering if you, when you're experiencing the city, if you observe how other people move, and then I also am thinking of that, and something that you were saying earlier made me have this realization of people being on their phones and moving around. Kind of seems
Yeah.
analogous to how you
It
travel?
makes me
and it's sort of
not
like
upset, but not angry, but deeply hurt.
yeah.
The figures in my work is always I'm perplexed by it. Other than, to me, the city is a figure. And there is a big monster in this painting.
Where?
Oh, well, you can and can't see it. Well, these are the...
Oh, is that a person
these
way
are the
down there too?
Well, actually, this is the monster, and this painting is called A Thinking Woman Lives with Monsters.
Oh.
And that's her that's her...
So this
like,
isn't a figure here?
that is a figure.
Okay.
And that actually is another figure.
Oh,
They're both
I
me.
see.
Wow.
And they're both me thinking. And that's the monster. And the monster actually has 3 hands.
Yeah.
3 claws, 3 whatevers. That might be the top of the monster's head. But it's basically the kind of 5th level of experience, which is the experience going on inside you. So you're singing a song, or you're having an argument with someone, or you're trying to remember what was on that list that you had to buy, you know. So, and that's part of the experience. So maybe not getting to the people is, maybe the story of my paintings are about my relationship with this big person named New York City,
Right.
who is, I've always said, this is the love of my life. And you know, when 9/11 happened, I said, yeah, my love got into a really bad accident. And she has like a broken leg, and she'll get better, it'll be a little bit different. You know, that type of thing, like I think of it as, and right now I feel like it's under attack by the corporate monster, the corporate nightmare. And it's being forced to wear clothes and behave in a way that's not it. I feel like one of these horrible fairy tale stories where a woman is forced to put on all the wrong things and behave like she's a goody-goody, and she's not. I don't know. I'm just hoping the whole thing crashes. I don't know. We can't. It's got to go back. I want it to be a mess again. Well, like for example, you guys, how the hell are you going to live here? And we need you here, because otherwise the city's dead. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying, more than anyone, right? Like, how do you live in the city? I've been here since '94 in this space.
Wow.
And it keeps going up, but it's not as up as everything else.
Right.
You've had this studio since '94.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
I don't know how. And you know, the whole neighborhood's turned into yuppie land, and somehow I managed to cling on. But I feel like it could be over any minute.
Wow, that's really
I know, isn't that wild? I walk out and I don't know where I am. You know, Beacon's Closet over there, Oak over there.
Yeah.
Starbucks. Star?
Oh yeah, they opened
That
up
was the
Starbucks.
last straw.
I know.
That one is back corner with that new building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and where do you live in?
I live about 15-minute walk.
Do you live in Greenpoint as well?
Yeah, I moved here in like 1980, because first I lived in the East Village, I got bumped out of that price. Then I moved down to Warren Street, which was not called Tribeca yet. Then you know what happened, I got bumped out of that and I didn't know where to go. And I was looking in Washington Heights and someone said, oh, there's this weird little neighborhood called Greenpoint, it's not so far. And I came here and it was so easy to get here. And it was close, I mean, because I love to walk, so I walked back and forth to Manhattan all the time. And I liked being in walking distance, for me, for crazy me. And I rented an apartment that day. I just loved it. It was like working class, it was like, nobody ever heard of it. It was perfect. And close to downtown, and now it's over.
I love Greenpoint.
I love it too, but Greenpoint is kind of maintaining a little more Greenpoint than Williamsburg
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
Williamsburg. Because Williamsburg was just like this, only with more working manufacturing, little manufacturing companies. It was great back then. I don't know if anyone has any memory. You might remember. Do you remember like back in the 80s?
I didn't come back here. I just
90s.
remember when I was a kid, in the 80s, coming to New York a couple of times.
Yeah.
And like, sort of, it was so different.
It
And
was
every once in
so
a while, like when I'm in Soho, I'll have a memory of what Soho
Do you remember
used to be
Soho
like.
when it was like a weird?
It was like
little-
people would just like cross the street and like put a lock in a door and disappear into some loft.
No,
You could
but
do it out
also
of
Lower
nowhere.
Manhattan down by Soho was the most fun place to
Yeah.
go. Every single weird store after another, nothing wet with anything else. There were like old Yiddish
No, it was amazing. It
fabric
was absolutely
stores
amazing.
next to these weird
Yeah.
discount secondhand clothes stores.
Do you know Carlo
And-
Pittore by any chance?
Who?
Carlo Pittore or Charles Stanley?
No.
Okay, because he was in the East Village also.
Oh, I probably.
And he
ran into them.
was an artist.
The best thing about living there was on Saturday night I would go get my New York Times, my Sunday Times at Gem Spa, you know, on the Punta Base, and Allen Ginsberg would be getting his there. And I would say to myself, I'm buying my New York Times, Allen Ginsberg on Saturday night in New York City. This is
So
heaven!
So great.
It was so fun, but it was like that. It was rough, but very intimate. Very intimate.
And so creative, I feel, because it was like just stuff happening
You
all the
could
time.
get a little of the vibe if you go into B&H Dairy. Do you all know B&H Dairy?
Yeah.
Just go in there, sit at the counter, and get a bowl of soup. Fabulous soup. But you get the people that go in there are like mostly, or seems to me, there's some younger people, maybe children of old